And welcome to SVG-TV's news for Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. I'm Triska Campbell with the details. St. Vincent and the Grenadines was among 141 countries which voted earlier today in favor of a UN resolution denouncing Russia's invasion of Ukraine. U.S. Representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said the resolution was placed before the General Assembly to show which countries genuinely believed in supporting the core principles of the UN and which ones deploy them as convenient catchphrases. In an address ahead of the vote, SVG's permanent representative to the United Nations, Her Excellency Inga Rhoda King, said the special military operation being carried out by Russia is not necessary or desirable and cannot be reasonably justified.
Mr. President, in the midst of prevailing global challenges, such as the climate crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic, we simply cannot afford another conflict. War does not manage grievances. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, therefore, calls for an immediate ceasefire to avert further bloodshed, human suffering, and a global catastrophe, and to engage in peaceful dialogue to find a solution to this war post-haste. Today, we must unite for peace.
Ambassador King told the august body that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has watched the countless indigenous effects of interventionist and external aggression across the developing world and knows the constructive dialogue is in adherence to international law is the only path for peace and progress.
Our support for the draft resolution is rooted in our conviction that the strict adherence to international law, including international humanitarian and human rights law, and the principles of peace, dialogue, and compromise for the preservation of humanity is not optional. As a small island developing state, full compliance with the bedrock principles of international law remains an existential issue. We take the floor again, Mr. President, to repeat our call for these principles to be applied consistently and upheld as universal truths, instead of selective, uneven, and unpredictable tools to further great power ambition anywhere and by anyone.
On Friday, 25th of February, the United Nations Security Council voted on a resolution condemning Russia's action. Russia vetoed the resolution. The United Nations Security Council is one of 6 principal organs of the United Nations, the UN, charged with ensuring international peace and security. Prime Minister Dr. Gonzales has finally disclosed the contents of his private letter to Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Prime Minister announced publicly last week that he had written a letter to President Putin. However, the contents would not be released until or if and when he is ready to do so, which sparked heavy criticisms from members of the public and opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday. During his weekly appearance on NBC Radio Today, PM Gonzales read the letter in its entirety, which condemns the special military operation launched by the Russian government in Ukraine.
As a long-standing friend of the Russian Federation, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is deeply disturbed at your government's initiative of a special military operation in the territory of Ukraine, an independent republic. Your government stands on the matters at hand, taken at its highest in your favor, cannot reasonably justify the special military operation upon which Russia has embarked. Self-evidently, the metaphoric horse and chariot have been driven through the Charter of the United Nations.
Prime Minister Gonzales further went on to say that he carefully listened to the views of world leaders and the majority opposed President Putin's decision to launch a special military operation in Ukraine. He said from SVG's perspective, the operation is neither necessary nor desirable and stands to have a negative impact on the people globally.
The special military operation will undoubtedly add much suffering to ordinary folks the world over, especially those who are still finding it very challenging to handle the pandemic, climate change, and natural disasters. The people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the Caribbean will undoubtedly be affected adversely. Please let us give peace and diplomacy a real chance to succeed. In our view, the nobility of peace is far preferable than an ignoble military adventure.
In the closing of his letter, Prime Minister Gonzales called for peace and urged President Putin very strongly to cease the special military operation in Ukraine and asked the Russian president not to disappoint him.
As you, a distinguished son of the magnificent Russian civilization, will weigh carefully what I have written. Let us go forth in peace, security, and prosperity for all. Please do not disappoint me. All the best to you, your family, your government, and people. Stay in touch, please.
Also on radio today, Prime Minister Gonzales disclosed that he is already looking into a new project to take place in capital Kingston. He said that his eyes are on a real estate that would now become available after the current port is moved to Rose Place. Prime Minister Gonzales said on his recent trip to the UAE, the bulk of the meetings held surrounded the topic of investments, and specific mention was made of the modern port project to the Prime Minister of Qatar.
And therefore my mind is on another project in Kingston, a big one. That is, when the port is finished down at Rose Place, where the existing port is in Kingston, we have a lot of real estate there. That's a big development project we have to get involved in. Possibility of another cruise ship there. You know, where the cargo boats normally, and to develop that whole front, going all the way back to the existing cruise ship there, as a modern development, urban development, both for nationals and for regional people and for tourists coming in from countries across the world, so that we can develop both the east, the west, and also the east.
Prime Minister Gonzales reiterated that upon completion, the modern port project would be operated by a state-owned company and that it would be a top-quality facility.
When we finish building the port, it would be operated by a state-owned company, but I'll make shares available to local, regional, and global investors, consistent with what are our own concerns and interests, because it's a modern port of real top-class international quality we'll be building there.
Deputy Prime Minister Montgomery Daniel, who is leading SVG's delegation at Caricom's 33rd Intersessional Summit in Belize, paid a visit on Monday to the Garifuna community in the country. Commonly known as the culture capital of Belize due to its influence on punta music and other forms of Garifuna culture, Danjiriga is the largest settlement in southern Belize. The Deputy Prime Minister, along with Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Saboto Caesar, who is also part of the delegation, met with several leaders of the Garifuna community. They also visited the Gulsi Community Primary School, the Gulsi Garifuna Museum, the studio of Pen Ketanio, musician and visual artist, the creator of the Turtle Shelled Band and Punta Rock. The team also experienced indigenous Garifuna food, dance, and language. Here is a snippet from the dance session with the two government ministers and the Garifuna dancers. In other news now, active COVID-19 cases in SVG have fallen in the teens, 16 to be exact. The latest report provided by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment on Tuesday, March 1st, indicates 2 new rapid antigen cases were reported from the reporting period, with no new cases. Hospitalization is also at 0, and the death toll remains at 106. In reference to vaccination, to date, 67,452 vaccines have been administered on island, with 3,070 boosters fully vaccinated. The Health Services Subcommittee of the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment, in a news release this afternoon, said in review of applications for fully vaccinated events has resumed. All private citizens, organizations, promoters, DJs, churches, sporting organizations, and event coordinators are asked to take note. The news release said those wishing to exceed the required capacity for the period March 2022 to July 2022 are asked to note the revised protocol for fully vaccinated events. Fully vaccinated first and second doses or a single dose vaccine, all eligible patrons, vendors, health and security personnel, and that mass gathering protocols for indoor and outdoor gatherings, maximum of 10 persons indoors, 20 persons outdoors, and 1/3 of the place of worship's capacity are still in effect. The subcommittee said these gatherings include but are not limited to clubs, bars, restaurants, weddings, funerals, conference rooms, churches, and private gatherings. The subcommittee said it will continue to be guided by the ever-evolving science as it works together with the public to maintain the health and well-being of all of SVG. The Christian community here today observed Ash Wednesday, the beginning of the Lenten season. As we hear in this report, for Ash Wednesday, Catholic priests were asked by Pope Francis to encourage their members and other persons to pray and fast for Ukraine.
Catholics across St. Vincent and the Grenadines observed Ash Wednesday today at the St. Mary's Cathedral 12 p.m. service in Kingstown. Cathedral Administrator of the Roman Catholic Diocese, Orlando Williams, told the congregation to remain prayerful and fast, and to remember Ukraine in their prayers. In an interview with SVG-TV News, Father Williams said the request to pray for Ukraine came from Pope Francis.
Because we have our Christian brothers and sisters who are present there, and they too are suffering during this period of war. Also, we don't need another war in the world at this time, given coronavirus and all the other ills that we have going on. So the Holy Father has asked us that this Ash Wednesday, that all Catholics and people of goodwill dedicated to praying and fasting for what is happening in Ukraine, that some sort of ceasefire, some sort of diplomatic solution might come about.
While Ash Wednesday signifies the beginning of Lent, Father Williams said it is also a reminder of our immorality.
It is from dust that we came, and to dust we shall return. The ashes, they are also there to remind us that we are sinful, and it's a period when we put it on, but we remember we need to cleanse ourselves.
Lent is always 46 days before Easter Sunday, and Father Williams is encouraging persons to reflect, reconcile, and be of service to others.
So not only focus on themselves in terms of purifying themselves, but also what about being able to give to others during this time. So Lent has 3 pillars: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And so we pray honestly during this time for self-preparation and so on, but then we are asked to give up things and so on, and then we are challenged that maybe in giving up these things, what about if you're able to also contribute to those who are maybe less advantaged?
For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pogsley-Kidd.
Fort Charlotte, one of SVG's historical sites, will be transformed into an attractive tourism hotspot, with consultations already commenced on the project, which is expected to start later this year. The Fort Rehabilitation Project forms part of the OECS Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project, funded by a loan from the World Bank. Larissa Pugsley-Kidd tells us more in this report.
2 public consultations have thus far been held, one with residents in the close environs of Fort Charlotte and one held virtually with stakeholders. Project coordinator of the OECS Regional Tourism Competitiveness Project, Christo Primus, explained that Fort Charlotte was chosen as it is the most visited site by tourists, but needs an upgrade to offer more to visitors.
Right now, currently, there is not a lot for tourists to see and to do. So the idea of the rehabilitation of Fort Charlotte is to improve what is there, while at the same time maintaining its historical flavor.
The fort rehabilitation is part of a 3-component project which seeks to better market tourism sites and provide a revenue stream for the tourism sector. With this in mind, Primus detailed what transformative designs are in place.
For example, there's going to be a cafeteria, the museum area, the display area is going to be improved. There is going to be a play area, for example, for kids. The car park is going to be redone. There's going to be an interpretation area.
Primus added that restorative works should commence closer to year-end, noting that designs are still preliminary. The consultants of the project are looking to incorporate suggestions and recommendations from residents and stakeholders.
The preliminary designs are due on March 10th. So following that, the consultants will continue to work on the final designs. The contract is expected to be completed at the end of June, and works are expected to start later this year around November.
Once completed, Fort Charlotte will not only be open to tourists.
There are a lot of private persons who ply their trade around the Fort Charlotte area. Of course, there are a lot of shops along the route to Fort Charlotte who benefit around the tourist season when tourists come through the area, whether it's by foot or also by the tour bus, wherever they stop. And some persons also sell, craft, artifacts, etc., crafts and handiwork at the fort. So those persons are also in the plan for the rehabilitation of Fort Charlotte.
The project is a $5 million World Bank loan which is in its 5th year of implementation and has been jointly implemented by the Ministry of Finance and Tourism. For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pugsley-Kidd.
UNESCO Director General Audrey Azoulay, on the recommendation of an international jury, has named Vincentian Dr. Jason Haynes as the laureate of the UNESCO Juan Bosch Prize for Promotion of Social Science Research in Latin America and the Caribbean. This prize recognizes his research on the theme Rethinking Anti-Trafficking Law and Practice, European and Commonwealth Caribbean Perspectives. Dr. Haynes is the Deputy Dean for the Graduate Studies and Research Faculty of Law at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill Campus, Barbados. He previously served as Secretary General of the Arbitration and Mediation Court of the Caribbean, as a Senior Legal Officer at the British High Commission, Bridgetown, Barbados. Created in 2009, the initiative of the government of Dominican Republic, the UNESCO Juan Bosch Prize is awarded every 2 years to young social scientists who, through their work, contribute to strengthening the links between research and public policies. Endorsed with US $12,000, the prize also aims to encourage intellectual change and dialogue in Latin America and the Caribbean. The prize bears the name of the celebrated Dominican author, politician, social analyst, and fervent defender of democratic values and a culture of peace, whose work has largely contributed to the study of social and political processes in the Dominican Republic and in the Caribbean. Previous lecturers were Karen Natalie Cruin Stevens of Colombia in 2013, Manuel Aldrero Andrea Bolivia 2015, and Estefania Siroc Colombia 2018. Dr. Haynes will be awarded the prize at a ceremony in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic in the first semester of 2022. In other news now, the RSVG Police Force has issued a wanted person bulletin for Rashawn Dasheen Gibson of Redemption Shops, who is said to be a person of interest in connection with investigations into several reports of offenses. The police say Gibson is considered armed and dangerous and should be approached with caution. If seen, you are asked to contact the nearest police station or Deputy Commissioner of Police at telephone number 451-2246 or 457-211, extension 4818, or the officer in charge of Criminal Investigations Department at 456-1810.